of the trees regarding our gender identity and sexuality. When there's no place like home, empty air and empty establishment. Friends with Dorothy, fighting for your civil rights. Out on the cruel streets tonight.
When trans lives are under attack,
Stand up, fight back!
when trans lives are under attack,
Stand up, fight back!
when trans lives are under attack.
Stand up, fight back!
Our first speaker is going to be River, a young trans college student who has been active in multiple LGBT groups and feminist groups in Ireland. So give it up for River. What happened to Brianna is inhumane. Even in death, based on media reporting, trans people are not safe from transphobia. This is another result of society's failure towards young people, specifically towards trans young people. We cannot ignore that this is also the result influenced by ideologies of trans exclusionist activists and a failure to create dialogue within the education system regarding the existence of trans people. Schools are meant to be a place where we learn how to treat each other, where we learn about the world around us and what it means to be human. But no. The education system as we know it, it is just another factor that contributes to the controlled of the hegemonic culture of the status quo, which needs to be reformed. It is important to also consider that Brianna's death is part of femicide under this current system with far-right ideologies and transphobic policies that are influencing culture, society, and the public conscience. No woman is safe. Trans exclusionist radical feminists do not care about the lives of women. They are in fact a danger to women and girls, along with gender critics. Sorry. They are in fact destroying the very movement of feminism that aims to create a world while challenging the binary status quo that profits off of women, which contributes to benefiting the system that aims to own and enslave the bodies of women. Turfism is a symptom produced by the patriarchy. Today is also about community. Today is about remembrance and solidarity. Brianna's death will not be in vain because we the trans community have always existed, and we will continue fighting and pushing for change. We will not submit to these lies and transphobic rhetoric that is being produced by TERFs and the far right. We will keep resisting barriers to progressive change. The basis of trans people's identity is human, not by our gender or sex, race, political beliefs, but being human. It is 2023, and yet we have to emphasize the fact that as trans people, we are human, but we will be heard. She is a young woman, and her name is Brianna. She is beautiful, and she deserves better. And she was taken too soon. Protect trans youth. Justice for Brianna and everyone in our community whose lives has been taken. And justice for all the women and girls who died of femicide. Trans women are women. We are your daughters, your partners, your sisters, your co-workers, your classmates. We are your mothers and grandmothers. We are human, and we are your family. And we exist. What do you want? Trans rights. When do you want it?
Now!
What do you want?
Trans rights!
When do you want it?
Now!
What do you want?
Trans rights!
When do you want it?
Now!
We understand that the subject and the recent news cycle in the UK and Ireland is very upsetting to people, and Brianna's death may just be the tipping point for some people. We just want to remind people that there are supports available to use.
If anything said tonight was distressing you in any way, there are support available. Samaritans, whose number is 116-123. There's also the LGBT helpline, whose number is 0890-929-539, or visit their website www.lgbt.ie. There are support available. Do not go through this alone, as this news has been distressing for many, and you shouldn't go through that alone. Our next speaker is going to be veteran LGBTQ+ and feminist activists involved previously in the likes of the Women's Liberation Movement, the National LGBT Federation, and a founding member of Marriage Equality and leading member for Together for Yes and the Coalition to Repeal the 8th Amendment. She is also an activist with People for Profit. Everyone please welcome Elvis Smith.
Well, first of all, I think it is absolutely wonderful.
Sorry, wait.
You're not right. So wonderful to see that so many have gathered here this evening to mourn the death. Still not hearing. Her community, her friends, her school, and I thought she was indeed fearless. And how deeply, deeply, deeply tragic it is that she was murdered so wickedly and so brutally. And I think we are all very shocked by the fact that the two young people who have been charged with her murder are only 15 years old. They are only 15. How have they come to have so much hatred in their hearts that they would want to stab this young woman? Whether they knew she was trans or not, I don't know. I don't know if the police know. The police say it was a possible hate crime. Of course it must have been some kind of hate crime. How else would you go and brutally stab someone in a park on a sunny Saturday afternoon? This lovely young woman. So I grieve, you grieve. We all mourn the loss of this life in a world, in a society that can harbour, that can create in two children, really, such hatred. And I think we all have to fight against that hatred. We have to stand up, as previous speakers have said, as River said so well. We have to stand up against transphobia. We have to stand up against misogyny. We have to stand up against hatred against anyone, whether they are LGBTIQ, whether they are migrants, whether they are people with disabilities, whether they are travellers, whoever and wherever they are. We have to put down a line and to say hatred and violence are never, ever, ever acceptable, and we will not tolerate them. So I want to finish by saying that those of us who are not trans, that we mourn with you, because I know this death will have an impact, and already is having an impact in your community, which is part of our larger LGBTIQ family and community. I know that. We mourn with you, we stand with you, we stand alongside you, and we say always, trans rights are human rights, exactly the same as any other human being's rights. Thank you all very much. One very important thing, come out on Saturday to protest against hatred, to celebrate and march for diversity, not division. We'll be up marching from Parnell Square in our thousands over to the Custom House at 1:30. I hope that all of the trans and the LGBTI community will be there. Thank you all.
Our next speaker is going to be councillor Leigh the South Dublin County Councillor for the Socialist Party and the youngest councillor on South Dublin County Council. A trans ally, Leigh has been so helpful to trans intersex pride and the trans community in Tallaght in her area. So please welcome Leigh Whelan.
My name's Leigh, and I'd just like to thank Trans Pride for asking us to speak today. First, I'd like to extend our deepest sympathies and solidarity with Brianna's family, friends and all who knew her. And second, I'd like to share my solidarity with the trans community here in Ireland and abroad. I was only out with Trans Pride in November as we stood together on Trans Day of Remembrance, and it's devastating that a few months later another horrific murder has taken place of someone so young. Brianna was only 16 years old. She deserves recognition, she deserves respect, and she deserves to be alive today. She should be enjoying her school midterm, but the horrible reality is that freedom is not a guarantee for our trans youth anymore, whose existence is being debated, ripped apart and spat all over by people in positions of power in governments and online. And in the media as well. We see all of yous. The complete vilification and dehumanisation of the trans community is radicalising a layer of people to misunderstand, hate, campaign against and attack trans people just for existing. The attack on trans people and the wider LGBT community in terms of education, healthcare and basic freedoms are becoming more and more, even to be visible in public. We've seen Trump promise to eradicate trans healthcare completely if he gets re-elected, while under Biden hundreds of anti-trans bills are being passed, mainly aimed at trans youth. We've seen the UK government block Scotland's gender recognition bill, and we know that Ireland ranks the worst for trans healthcare across EU countries, and there are many more instances of this across the globe. These attitudes filter into and manifest still real communities in people we may know, in children as young as 15. The trans issue, the trans debate, as long as we keep framing people's lives as something as you can debate, you further take away their autonomy, you further take away this person's existence and replace it with as a political tool to whip up fear and hate. We need to do better by Brianna, by the many trans people who have lost their lives to violence, to the trans community still here now. Overall, we need to protect trans youth. This system perpetrates violence and forms of misogyny and transphobia, and I want to remind you all that this isn't a flaw in the system, it's a feature. We need to open our eyes and understand that capitalism isn't working. Gender-based violence, domestic abuse, LGBT attacks are all on the rise. A system that profits from exploitation and enforces misery and division will not be the system that liberates us, whether that be class, gender or sexual liberation. We will bring that change forward ourselves from below, and we have to tear down the very system that perpetrates patriarchal violence in the first place. As I've stated, we need to make sure our trans youth feel safe. According to a report last year, 76% of LGBT students in Ireland do not feel safe in our schools. We need to do better for them. Our education board invited well-known TERF and conversion therapists to speak to principals and deputy principals on how to deal with trans students in schools. We need to do better for them. We have schools stuck under the control of a Catholic patronage. Young students are being told that, and this is a direct quote, that their period is a gift from God and they are perfectly made to procreate with him, end quote. This is not objective sex education for our students. We need to do better for them. Conservative, right-wing, capitalist governments are riling up a culture war because they have no answers for the real issues that are impacting everyone. The housing crisis, the healthcare crisis, and the cost of living crisis. The system that they protect and benefit from is the cause of frustration and suffering for many people. A for-profit system will never provide for the masses of people, and we need real action that will change people's material reality for the better. We're seeing right-wingers use the slogan "protect women" when they put forward their transphobic takes, when in reality they are reinforcing traditional gender roles and the gender binary, when that's what we want to break away from. We cannot sugarcoat the reality that is facing trans people. We can't let the boil that's spewed in national and international media continue. We cannot let our trans siblings continue without healthcare, education and most importantly, safety. As cis people, we need to stand with voices. We must use our platforms as activists, as educators, as TDs, as counsellors to ensure inclusion and acceptance is at the fore. We need to make sure rights, protections and resources for LGBT people are extended in all avenues. We need to shut down scaremongering and put forward an alternative that will cut across the rise in attacks that we're seeing. We can't let the Protect Women banner be used to hurt the trans community, and trans women in particular. We're even seeing the slogan being utilised against refugees and migrants by the far right. We know that they don't speak for us. We know that they will use and exploit our trauma and suffering to further their agenda. What needs to be done is to organise a real response to the uptake in violence against trans people and women too. We know the Gardaí won't do anything should they ignore thousands of domestic abuse calls. We know that the right wing are organising, so we have to as well. We need to do it ourselves so that we don't learn another trans person's name due to their death. Not one more trans person killed, not one more trans youth dead. Thank you.
The next speaker is going to be from Tenny, and it's going to be Lilith Ferreira O'Carroll, the Community Development Officer for the Transgender Equality Network of Ireland, who focuses on promoting mental health, resilience and capacity building within the trans community in Ireland through community events and with trans peer support groups. Please welcome Lilith.
We at Tenny are shocked and saddened by the news of Brianna Ghey, and our thoughts and sympathy go out to Brianna's loved ones at this incredibly sad and tragic time. I just wanted to give a direct quote of one of her trans sisters, one of her very close friends. We've been planning for months how we wanted to have a life together. We would plan our future apartment and how we go and get our hair done, have our surgeries. But now I'm having to think about doing all of that by myself. Brianna was supported by her family, and she expended so much energy in supporting others in her community in accessing healthcare. This is a 16-year-old girl, remember, and she was doing this. But yet, she experienced severe bullying in the time coming up to her death. And in the end, she was tragically killed by two 15-year-old kids. It definitely, brings back memories of last year as well. On January 3rd of last year, Zen Black, a non-binary tattoo artist, was killed in Downpatrick, County Down, as a result of a knife attack that took place in broad daylight just outside their apartment at 11 a.m. Despite witnesses attempting to intervene and halt the attack, they were pronounced dead at the scene after emergency services arrived. They were just 28 years old. Zen had complained to police twice that they had been verbally abused and threatened just days before. Zen, who originally hailed from Bangor, was considered by many who knew them to be one of the best tattooists in Northern Ireland. In August of 2018, Silva Tukola, a transgender woman, was found dead in the all-male direct provision centre in Galway, despite repeated requests from her friends and family to be notified of her burial arrangements so that they could have an opportunity to pay their respects and celebrate her life. In June 2019, Silva was buried without any service and without her Galway family being there with her. Many of Silva's close loved ones found out through an article that appeared in the journal. We are living in the midst of a 7-year hate campaign and culture war stoked by politicians, media and the same thugs that incite hatred and violence towards refugees and migrants. The toxic media campaign has been brought to our shores despite no appetite in this country and well-known established links to rises in hate crime and further violence against our community. Healthcare for all trans people in Ireland on the public system is all but gone with the collapse of adolescent healthcare, the imminent closure of the Tavistock in the UK with no replacement, and a 9-year wait for a brutal and traumatic psychopathologizing assessment in regards to the so-called healthcare service for adults. Ireland is the headquarters of some of the world's most prominent conversion therapy advocates, and their organisations that have been linked with misinformation campaigns influencing healthcare policies across Europe, and hundreds of anti-trans laws, mostly targeting trans children, being passed by state legislators in the United States, with some enjoying the privilege of airtime on our national airwaves and column inches in our papers of record. Our society and culture is increasingly succumbing to the sickness of transphobic hate by the day, and our community will face the brunt of Ireland's hate. Willful ignorance and indifference, hateful words and lies about us encourage dehumanisation and encourage thugs to attack, maim and kill us. As things stand, I worry that it's a case of when, not if, a trans person is murdered in the Republic, if our society and culture does not come back from the brink and cherish all the children and adults of Ireland equally. Over the last few days, I've experienced the full gamut of emotions as I've mourned for our community's loss. Numbness, sadness, anger, fear, back and forth over and over. I'd say to those trans people here today, sit with the feelings that come as a result of this horrific incident. Feel what you need to feel. Take the time to process. I'd ask that you take care not to lash out in the moment, especially towards others in our community who are also hurting, despite any disagreements you may have. Now is the time for all of us to step up and hold each other in our grief together as a community. I would encourage you all to seek help if the burden is too much. I would also encourage you to find comfort, healing and strength in community, be that the biological or found family that you have, with friends and allies in our communities and beyond. Tenny can link you in with family support groups for young people and their families, and support and social groups for adults around the country. Remember that we have each other. There is strength to be found in community and the space to heal. I ask allies here today to comfort, to care, to help, but also to fight, especially when we are going through such painful times. We need you to stand with us and to turn the tide of hate. Thank you.
We're here both to mourn the death of Brianna Ghey, but also to say that this should never happen again. She was a 16-year-old trans girl who was killed last Saturday afternoon. This happened in the UK, but when one of the members of our community dies or is taken away from us too soon, we all feel it. We all feel it no matter where we live. We all feel it as if it was one of our friends or one of our family members. We call this vigil tonight because it is essential that more than ever we stand together both in our mourning and in solidarity with our trans siblings in the UK. We've seen the effects of the growing TERF and transphobic rhetoric has had on trans lives in the UK. From the Westminster government using Section 35 to block Scotland's Gender Recognition Act, to the 56% increase in transphobic hate crimes being reported to the police. The ongoing traumatising climate is having an effect on young trans people both here and in the UK. Someone already mentioned the 76 report 76% of LGBTI students reporting feeling unsafe at school. There is also, within that survey, has been a sharp increase in students feeling unsafe due to their gender expression since 2019. Currently in Ireland, we have no supports for young trans people, as the Child and Adolescent Clinic in Crumlin has not accepted new referrals since December 2020. This leaves young trans people with no support and nowhere to turn to. From 17 years old, they can be referred to Loughlinstown, but they are then faced with a 9-year wait. Although the Gender Recognition Act was passed in 2015 and allows some trans people to change their legal gender to self-determination, this process is complicated for 17-year-olds, and under 16s are unable to access any form of gender recognition. Ireland and the UK has continuously let down trans youth and the trans community, whether that be by further restricting our lives and our healthcare, or refusing to teach students LGBTQ+ inclusive education. We've seen both here and in the UK, the far right and TERFs are standing side by side to prevent schools from teaching students about what it means to be trans, bisexual, gay or queer. They cloak themselves by saying that they care about children's safety, but really what they want is for trans people to stay closeted, if not totally eradicated from society altogether. LGBTQ+ people are called groomers. They say that we're trying to indoctrinate children into some kind of agenda. When what we really want, what LGBT youth really need, is to learn about themselves, their sexuality and their gender in a safe and supportive environment, to know that there isn't anything wrong with them. They are not confused, but to give accurate information to their classmates. Well, we can't say for sure at this moment that the 2 teenagers that were charged with the death of Brianna were doing it because she was trans. We can say that the current climate of transphobia in the UK would have certainly had an effect on them. We can't underestimate how young people are being radicalised with deeply misogynistic and transphobic talking points, that they are parroting the same stuff they are hearing through the media, by politicians, by teachers, and by even their parents. This kind of attack doesn't come out of nowhere. And we absolutely should point the finger at those who drum up and and spread fear and violence against trans people. We can't ignore those who seek to dehumanize and vilify trans people, to deny us access to healthcare, to take us away from sports and even public bathrooms. And we are saying this because it is relevant. Violence and oppression against trans people did contribute to the transphobic bullying Brianna went through. It's been reported that multiple complaints were sent to the school around the safety of all their students, that bullying was reported in her school and they were ignored. While the police aren't calling this attack of transphobic hate crime at this time, to not talk about transphobia would do her a disservice. We can't ignore the inherent transphobia that exists within society, and this is not using her death This is not using her death in a way that is disrespectful, but holding the right people to account. Her death is political because her life was made to be political. TERFs and transphobes can't just wash their hands clean after emboldening people like the 2 teenagers to commit violent attacks against trans people. Every transphobe, every TERF, every newspaper and any talk show that spreads transphobic rhetoric is to blame. The transphobic system is to blame for taking this young trans girl's life. Even in her death, she isn't afforded peace. Her dead name was added to articles once it was discovered that she was trans. Reference to her being a girl were replaced with just transgender. Not to respect her trans identity, but to downplay and erase her identity as a girl. And she has been repeatedly misgendered. Even Graham Lenihan, in the news of this tragic girl's death, had said that there is no such thing as a trans child. That is disgusting, and all transphobes and gender criticals should be ashamed of themselves. I think I saw a sign that says protect our trans siblings, and people are saying protect our trans youth. But how do we ensure the safety of trans youth? How do we protect trans kids from violence and oppression? Protecting trans kids means lowering the age of gender recognition to 16. It means adequate trans healthcare and support for young trans people. It means public housing for homeless youth. Proper LGBTQ plus education, including sex education. Schools taking real action on transphobic bullying, an end to all forms of violence against trans people, and ensuring we have a society that allows all young people the freedom to flourish and express themselves in the way that they want to. And I want to end by saying there is a famous when femicide is brought up, it's ni uno menos, and it's not one more. And we say not one more death, not one more trans person taken away from us too soon, not one trans person killed because they are trans. Thank you.
Friends with Dorothy, come out off the sidewalk and onto the street to the sound of those legends.